This story takes place about a week ago. Myself and a friend decided to go to the beach because we both couldn't sleep. The beach will remain unnamed, but just so you know, it's on the western coast of New Zealand. Our story begins when we were driving there. The road was a long and windy one. I had driven that road hundreds of times before, both with and without somebody else in the vehicle with me. I began to get a weird feeling in the pit of my stomach as we drove past the usually closed car park on the right, which was now open. I had never seen it open in the 15 or so years I'd been coming to the place. The time was around 11:30 p.m. We both commented on it, but shrugged it off, more concerned with the amazing photos we were going to be able to take with the last night of the full moon. When we arrived at the beach, we parked the car in the unlit car park. It was further down the beach than the river that led to the sea. Having grown up around this particular area, I was very confident when it came to where I was. We locked the car and headed down the sandy path to the black and white stained surface of the beach. The moon casted an eerie glow over everything, while providing light for us to walk. We started to head east down the beach, towards a large cave situated right at the end. This cave was hidden by a huge sand dune, which must have been accumulated over years of the wind whipping it up. Our destination was at the top of the dune, because it gives you a very unique view of the water. As we headed towards it, we heard the crackling of burning wood nearby, and we could also smell smoke. In this country, it's strictly against the law to have fires anywhere on or near the beach. We noticed a small fire sitting off to the right about 100 meters from where we were. I noticed from the corner of my eye that there didn't seem to be anybody around the fire, just a fire burning randomly in the tall flammable grass of the dunes. My friend, who we'll call Casey, pointed out the fire. We both shrugged it off as some teenagers having some drinks, even though there was no sound except the crackling of the fire and the slight wind on the beach. About 100 meters down the beach, we encountered the first of the night's issues. I saw a man sitting in the middle of the sand, just staring out at the water. I didn't initially think it was weird, but upon further inspection, the guy was just staring out there at the water, apparently not aware of the two people calling out to him. Strange, but hey, some people are just weird, right? We got to the dune and climbed up the 20 or so meters of sand to the top. Just for reference, the black cave mouth was to our backs as we snapped picture after picture of the beach and the water, all under the moonlit clear starry sky. Suddenly from behind us, we heard a strange growling sound, like a dog, but it was fuzzy. It was like a human being, pretending to be a dog. I'll be honest, by this time, I was ready to get out of there. I looked at Casey and said, "I've had enough nope in my life. I'm going back to the car." As we were descending down the sand dune, the sound got louder and louder. It was like it was following us, and every step we took made it come even closer. I'll admit I'm not the fittest of people, and neither is my friend, but the adrenaline kicked in. At that moment, I grabbed her hand, and we booked it down the beach. We only got about 500 meters before the weird staring guy came back into view. This time he was not staring at the water, he was staring at us. My mother always told me that if something didn't feel right, it more than likely is not right. I don't know what it was about the man's eyes, but they looked menacing. As we ran towards him though, he started barking at us. As we passed, he got up on all fours like a dog and chased us. I've never been so scared in my life. As I ran towards what I thought was the path, we came down. I grabbed my friend's hand and guided her up the path. The growling and barking man had not followed us all the way. I don't know why. Maybe he didn't see us go up, or maybe he was just done with us. This path led deeper into the bush beside the beach. We walked using a single phone flashlight to guide our way. My foot felt something that was not sand or grass. It was more solid. As I shone my light down, I saw what was a chewed-up shoe. It looked like it was abandoned in a hurry. As we fumbled through the bush and tall grass, I could see the road. It was so close, but so far. As I moved towards it, I heard someone yell and shone a flashlight at us. It was someone camping in the tall grass. I've never been so happy to see another human being in my life. I said, "We were coming back from the beach and got lost. What's up with that guy who's barking on the beach?" The guy told us he hadn't heard anything, and to F off before he smashed us. We made it back to the road, and realized we were still 1 kilometer from the car. We sluggishly walked the road, not wanting to go anywhere near the beach. When I got back to my car, I noticed that part of my trim had been lifted, and it looked like someone had chewed it. I will never go wandering on that beach at night, ever again. I was walking home really late one night, after a tiring day. I had been out since morning, and I worked all day, then went to a concert with some friends. They both caught the train home, but my building was close by, so I decided to walk. I lived in an apartment downtown back then. The streets were empty, and it was late. It was the city though, so it was pretty well lit. I was only about 10 minutes away from my building. There were very few people on the street. The occasional car would pass by, but it was pretty dead for that area. I walked past a few storefronts. There was an alley between them, and another small street on the other side. When I was passing, I saw something. It seemed to be a person being robbed. I thought it might have been 2 people arguing at first, but then I noticed one of them was wearing a ski mask. I know I should have left and found help, but I couldn't just ignore what was happening. I hid behind a parked car and watched. I peeked through the car window and saw the robber holding a knife. The victim was gone. When I saw that, I wanted to get out of there. I came out from behind the car and tried to slip away, but before I could, the mugger saw me. Our eyes met for a moment, and I knew that he had seen me too, if only for a split second. My body was filled with adrenaline, and I started walking very quickly. I wanted to move fast, but I also didn't want to draw any attention to myself. I looked back while I was walking. There was a man behind me. He was wearing dark clothes. I was pretty sure it was the robber from before, but he wasn't wearing his mask anymore. Finally, I arrived at my front door. I struggled to find the right key, but eventually I found it. I looked around before I went in, and I saw the man still following me. He was at least 50 feet back though. I got inside and closed the door behind me. As soon as I did, I realized the mistake I'd made. That guy knew where I lived. I wanted to call the police, but I was too scared. I've heard horror stories about gang members getting revenge for things like this. I didn't know if that guy was in a gang or not, but I didn't want to risk it. I didn't want any part of that kind of thing. I know it's selfish what I did, but that guy had a knife, and the last thing I wanted to do was to make an enemy like him. I just hope the other guy who he robbed made the call instead. I moved somewhere else not long after that. This happened not long before the initial lockdowns in 2020. After that, my work moved online, so I moved back to my hometown, where things like this never happened. When I was just 16 years old, I was all alone in my house one evening. It was July of 2014. I have a younger brother and sister, but they were both away at sleepovers for the night. I was allowed to stay home because I was old enough. My parents were away visiting family. We lived in a 2-story townhouse in a somewhat rough neighborhood. Not the worst, but it was near a major urban center, so there would be crime from people coming in. There was a mugging near my school about 2 weeks prior to this incident. In our house, there were 3 bedrooms upstairs. My parents and my sister had their own room, but my brother and I shared a room. Like I said, he was away for the night though. It was quiet, and I was enjoying the peace. I had some friends over earlier, but we called it a night at around 10 p.m. Then I stayed up until around midnight. I fell asleep right away. Sometime in the night though, I woke up to the sound of footsteps from downstairs. I was worried that somebody had broken in. I didn't know what to do. I decided to hide and stay out of sight. With a shaking breath, I tiptoed out of my bed to my closet, which was only a few steps away. I hoped I didn't make any noise. I closed the door gently, and then scanned the room through the crack in my closet door. Once I was inside, I was careful not to make a sound. It was dim, but I could see faint streaks of light seeping through the gaps. I squeezed myself into the confined space, feeling a lot of anxiety. The air inside was musty, and my heart pounded loudly in my ears. There was a faint blue glow pouring into the room through the hallway. We had a light out there that was always on. That way we wouldn't trip and fall if we had to go to the bathroom at night. I sat there for several minutes. The sound of the burglars continued. I continued to hear some faint talking. I didn't know who they were or why they were there. I figured they thought the whole family was away. From my hiding spot, I had a limited view of the room. I strained my ears listening to the sounds that echoed through the house. The intruders moved about, their footsteps echoing in the silence. They whispered to each other in hushed voices, and my body trembled with fear, but I knew I had to stay quiet in there. Peering through the small opening in the closet door, I finally saw them. Two men walked into my bedroom and looked around. One of them left immediately. The other stood in the doorway for about a minute. Then he took 2 more steps into my room. For a moment, I thought he saw me. I thought I made a noise or something, but I didn't. The man turned around and walked away. I guess he didn't think a kid's room was worth it. I did manage to get a pretty good look at the guy's face, though. He was around 40 years old, thin with a messy gray beard and glasses. He had a dirty bomber jacket with the Detroit Red Wings logo on the back. I memorized those details so I could help with the police later. I was relieved when he walked away. I clung to the hope that they wouldn't discover my hiding place. Finally, after what seemed like an hour, the burglars seemed to leave. The silence that followed their departure was eerie. I remained in the closet, afraid to come out just yet. Once I gathered enough courage, I cautiously emerged from my hiding spot. I probably waited at least half an hour, but I didn't have a watch, so I can't really trust my judgment in that state of mind. The house felt different. I knew I had to act quickly, so I called the police. It was past 3 a.m. at this point, but they arrived almost immediately. The police searched the house while I waited out front with one of the officers. I told them what I witnessed from the closet. I told them the details about the man that I had seen. As soon as I told them the description, the police told me that they knew the man. They were able to catch him that night, and I identified him. It turned out one of those guys was a pretty dangerous man. The man in the Red Wings jacket had a long criminal history and was currently on probation. The other had been charged with some petty crimes. They both did some prison time for what they did to me. Though I was shaken by the experience, I couldn't help but feel grateful that I'd remained hidden. There were some really dangerous people out there, and I have no doubt I would have been in trouble if they saw me. We never had another break-in at that place, but I didn't really feel safe in that house ever again. This story happened in the early 80s, when I was about 5 years old. Our family lived in Boise, Idaho, with my mom, dad, and brother. My brother and I slept in the same room. The layout of our room was somewhat typical, with the headboards of our beds up against the same wall, and spread apart by about 5 feet, with a nightstand in between. There was a nightlight that produced a yellow-orange glow, which softly illuminated our bedroom. One night I woke up, what I would guess to be around 3 a.m. I was gazing off towards the side of my brother's bed. Suddenly, I noticed movement on the side of his mattress. Being curious, I continued to watch. Within seconds, I noticed facial features begin to form, almost as if a face was literally coming out of the side of his mattress. I still wasn't scared as I continued to watch. Within moments, I found myself staring at this. A smooth brown wrinkled face, mouth open, with visible sharp pointed teeth. The eyes were yellow in color, with cat-like slit pupils in the center. Eyes that had a 1,000-yard stare, almost like it was daydreaming, but looking right at me. My mind began to race. I shuffled through my mental files, trying to find a match for what I was looking at. After a few moments, my mind came up with no match. I lost it. I covered my head with my blankets in panic and tried not to breathe or show any sign of life under my blankets. If I was to compartmentalize what I was looking at, it would be what some would call a demon. Only later would I begin to make this connection. I lay awake for what felt like hours, till I heard someone walking in the hall. I raced out of bed to the door to find my father awake. I remember frantically trying to explain what I saw. I even grabbed a piece of paper, to which I unsuccessfully tried to draw what I had seen. To this day, I remember the incident vividly. I'm fully aware of hallucinations and sleep paralysis. I don't believe this was the case. If it was, I wouldn't have been able to move and cover my head with my blankets. I'm not a religious person, nor was our house haunted. It was just one of few experiences of my life that I find utterly bizarre and creepy. The origins of this experience still fascinate me, but I still find it unsettling. This was real, but what it was, I have no idea.